You're watching Drakewing Gaming. Enjoy the video.
Hey guys and gals, Nary here from Drakewing Gaming, and something on Twitter, the Gaming Drag. Today I'm coming back at you with a Let's Play episode of Sileo, Ty's Path. So y'all, let's go ahead and jump right back into it, shall we? Alarm chain, you are up, and let's go. Camping time, y'all. Alright. You are participating in the tournament. How wonderful. I took part of it last year, as did Diego, now that I think about it. Nice! With huge guns like that, I bet you I totally smashed it, right, dude? I got as far as the semifinals. At last I found myself pitted against the very man that went on to win. Oh, dude, that's super rotten luck, man. Indeed. Sometimes, though, that is just how things go. I am, however, most confident that your luck will be better than mine. I sure hope you're right, man. Say, ever heard of a fighter called Logan? Apologies, but I cannot say I am familiar. Well, that's whose ass I gotta kick if I want to make the quarterfinals. I guess all I can do is, cross my fingers, right, dude? Indeed, and I am sure I speak for the three of us when I say ours will be crossed for you as well. Right, thanks, dudes. I can only hope to win, but, if I lose, ain't the end of the world. I'm doing it for fun, after all. A most respectable attitude, although I do hope you will not be complacent. No way, it's only fun if I'm, totally giving it my all. Where's the joy in not challenging yourself? I am glad you think so. I am of a similar disposition, and that was part of my reason for taking part last year. Is either you or Diego taking part this year? No, neither of us are. I had planned to, but, well... I get you, my dude. Life comes first, right? Indeed. Oh, please watch your footing there. It would seem the pathway is in a poor state of repair. I would not wish for any of you to fall into the river below. Now that Ty had pointed it out, I was conscious of the sound of running water close by. Looking ahead, much of the path had disintegrated and crumbled into the river below. Allow me to go first. I wish to ensure the path is stable. I would loathe there being any preventable injuries on our... Something seemed to have captured Ty's attention as his sentence trailed off and he began sniffing away at the air. I looked toward the others, who all seemed confused as I was. Thus I decided to inquire. What's wrong, Ty? Ty turned to the rest of us and recognized our shared look of confusion. With a dismissive smile, he addressed the topic at hand. It is nothing. A curious scent on the wind, I suppose. Ty turned back towards the damaged path and took point, shimmying sideways across the narrow ledge before safely reaching the other side. I went next, very nearly losing my balance on a particularly slippery piece of ground, but nonetheless crossing unscathed. Looks like we're up, Axe. You ain't gonna fall in like you always do, right? No, I'm much steadier than I used to be. I almost never fall down. That's great, dude. I'll take up the rear. Time for you to, stretch your stuff, little dude. Axel took a deep breath before gingerly advancing along the decrepit path. He grasped at whatever he could reach for balance as he slowly progressed along the narrow shelf. Things are going well, until a piece of the damaged pathway began to give way. Axel, I'd make it quick if I were you. Huh? Axel had barely opened his mouth when his foot came down directly on the collapsing section, causing the whole thing to spontaneously collapse beneath his weight. Wah! Oh, well, it's a good thing you have a shark. Having fished a soaking wet Axel from the creek, the four of us continued onward, leaving Axel a trail of water with every passing step. Not only was he completely drenched, but the contents of his pack, including his other clothing, were too. Russell seemed torn in the choice between his amusement and his empathy. Ha! It's just like old times, dude. I can't believe it. I'm, totally thrilled. I'm not. I know, I'm sorry, Axe. I'm not laughing at you. I'm just happy, and not because you're wet. I mean, I missed you, little dude. Aw, me too. I missed you too. How very sweet. It would seem our camping expedition has helped facilitate a touching reunion between long-lost friends. At long last, it was looking as though our journey had made some much-needed progress. Looming overhead stood one of the mountains that constituted the outer ring surrounding Woodcrest, and before us was a flight of stairs leading towards it. You know, Hunter, Russell and Axel have spoken at length about their childhood. I am most curious as to when I can expect to learn more about your own. Mine? It's not really an exciting story. I would still very much like to hear it. After all, we are dating, are we not? Ty's request seemed fair. After all, it was only natural to want to know all about the person you're building a relationship with. I cleared my throat and began telling the tall tale of my life. Sure, well, my parents split when I was born. It was amicable, but they just couldn't agree on how to proceed. I've only met my dad a few times throughout my life, but he's a good man. I was raised by my mother solo. I was an only child, didn't have a heap of money, but she did everything she could to give me the happiest childhood possible, often to her own detriment. I grew up as a kid in Sidonia, but when my grandpa died, Mom got something of an inheritance, so we moved away to Riverton on the west coast where that inheritance could afford a deposit on a house for us to live in. After high school, that's when I moved to Sidonia, so I guess you already know the rest. When was the last time you saw your mom? She stayed with me for a few weeks not long after I finished uni. She could see I was struggling. She felt bad, but there wasn't anything she could do to help. We still chat now and then. She's doing okay. Riverton has been good to her, at least for the most part. Why'd you move here instead of back to Riverton? Riverton is small. Too small. It's a nice place, but it's not somewhere I could see myself having a future. Woodcrest, though? This place has a reputation as the place to be. You're right about that, dude. Somerville is kind of the same as Riverton by the sounds of things, I guess. It's dying down there because of all the young workers just come up here instead. Well, it's like I said. Diego was here too, and he had a room for me, and I don't really want to move back in with Mom, you know? Totally, dude, I get you. What about your dad? What about him? When did you last see him, I mean? He was in Sidonia once during my last year of uni. He was only in town for a day, but he dropped by to say hello. It's kind of awkward without Mom there. We never really found our groove with one another, but I appreciate the effort on his part. I see, it must be hard growing up without a dad. Nope, not really, but I guess I never really knew what I was missing. It was harder for Mom, I think, raising a kid on one income. Yeah, I'm glad she's doing okay. I'm glad you're doing okay, too. Indeed, I share the very same sentiment, and I thank you for sharing, Hunter. Your tale is a lot more interesting. Again? Ty's pace slowed down once again, sending the three of us into a pile-up directly behind him. Not like before, he began sniffing at the air, some interesting scent having piqued his curiosity. Something on the wind again? Indeed. I can't smell anything. Russell? Dude, I'm a shark. But I thought... Want to know if, someone peed in your pool or something? As much as I would hate for you for asking, I'm your dude. But on land, I can barely smell what's, right in front of my face. Oh. I gotta admit, though, I'm curious, too. Hunter, any ideas? Nope, I didn't catch it either. Indeed, it has eluded me once more. I'm sorry to have wasted your time, gentlemen. Let us mosey on. Ty began walking once again as Axel, Russell, and I all rejoined formation in his wake. The steps we'd been climbing continued to stretch out into the distance with no end in sight as our group continued to press onward. Thinking about our conversations, I was conscious that I, like Axel and Russell before me, had told everyone about my upbringing, yet Ty had not extended that same courtesy. You know, Ty, it strikes me that, except for you, we've all talked at length about ourselves. Oh, my goodness, you're right. I apologize. Where are my manners? Is that something you would like to hear? Of course. Totally, man. I bet you've got, some crazy stories to tell. Yep. You know all about us. It's only fair. Ha! You are right. Fair is fair. Well then, let me think. Ty quickly seemed enveloped by his own thoughts, scratching his chin in sync with each step he climbed. His silence persisted for quite some time before I spoke up, hoping to regain his attention. Now, look who is away with the fairies. Come on, Ty, we're waiting for you to tell the story. Oh dear, I am sorry. My mind was somewhere else. I feel compelled to warn you that this is no story for the faint of heart. I should hope none of you will find this upsetting, but... Nothing for it but to proceed, I suppose. I will begin by telling you that I was raised by my maternal grandmother. I remember very little about my parents, but suffice it to say, they were not present. Axel's face fell, no doubt in recollection of his prior comment about growing up without a dad. Right away, it seemed as though Ty's childhood would be less of an upbeat story than those that followed. Much like you, Hunter, I was raised an only child by a single caregiver. And much like your mother, my gran did everything in her power to make up for what I was missing out on. She did a fantastic job. I owe so much of my success and happiness today on her. I will never forget everything she did for me. Wow, dude, she seems like a super special lady. You are right. She was. Oh, 1 second, y'all. Water time. Alright, guys and gals, and we are back. Let's go. Let's jump right into it, shall we? Okay. She raised me as though I was her own, and she was also so very kind and selfless. I have such fond memories. There was this thing she used to say to me whenever I was hurt or sad, or even if I was scared. If I had nightmares a lot as a child, you see, and I would wake up in hysterics. She would scoop me out of bed and into her arms. She would sit there patiently, sometimes for hours, consoling me and trying to calm me down. And if all else failed, she did the most era-appropriate thing you can imagine and let me have a shot of her whiskey. Foul stuff. I remembered it tasted of cinnamon and nutmeg. If I had not mellowed before, it certainly did after that. I often wonder if it was the alcohol or the shock of its foul taste. But when I finally had, those were the moments she saved her precious phrase for. You are such a strong boy, and you should be so very proud of yourself. On my first day of school, all of the kids just ignored me. They had their little groups and were off doing the things children like to do. I felt lonely, but almost as if it were fate, there was another child feeling the very same way. I did not notice him at first. He sat in the corner of the room alone, playing quietly with a fire truck toy. I watched as a group of boys would then approach and yank the toy from his grasp. They called him all these names, but one in particular stood out. Dirty Orphan. I knew what it was like not having parents, and I stepped in. I drove the boys back. I sat with the boy as tears streamed down his face. I told him that I had no parents either, and that I knew what that was like. I told him he had nothing to be ashamed of, and that I would not let those kids bother him anymore. I gave him the biggest hug, and after that, he looked at me with those big green eyes of his and bravely forced a shaky smile. That is when he introduced himself. Lucas. From that day forward, Lucas and I were inseparable. Woodcrest was much smaller in those days, so most year groups only had one class. You see, those children never forgot that I stepped in for Lucas. We spent our entire childhood with targets on our backs. Thankfully, the smaller classes also meant that we could look out for and protect one another. I spent each and every school day in his company and most afternoons. He would even come home with me, even sometimes staying the entire night. The orphanage was not a particularly happy place for him, so Gran did all she could to try and surround him with happiness. Whenever Gran would take me somewhere, Lucas would always come along with us as we set out to find the most beautiful places in Woodcrest. But there was one spot in particular all three of us loved the most. There was this place in the north of town, tucked deep within the forest and nestled away in the hills, which has the most beautiful view of Woodcrest you will ever see. And it is so very quiet and peaceful there. The path to it was near where we set off from earlier. The three of us spent so much time there. I have so many fond memories. Lucas was adopted when he was 9. We were both so scared that his new parents would split us all up, and said they did everything they could to make him happy. They even paid Gran a little for her trouble. Okay, now, water time. They were wonderful people. It took Lucas a long time, but eventually he would warm up to them. And so life carried on. That was until we began high school. I apologize. High school was a very difficult time for us. For me in particular. There are some bad memories that I do not wish to revisit. It's okay, my dude. You don't have to say anything you don't, want to. Yep. It began making sense why Ty hadn't offered to tell his own tale. I couldn't help but be curious about just what his high school years had entailed. The last thing I wanted to do was cause him any discomfort or sour the overall mood. We understand. Just say what you're comfortable with. Well, you see, I fell out of contact with Gran and Lucas for a couple of years. I had said and done many regretful things, and I pushed them both away even though all they wanted was to help. And so I found myself at rock bottom, enjoying the silence in that spot overlooking Woodcrest one evening, and Lucas found me. He brought cake with him. I had not even realized it was my 17th birthday. I was glad that he found me when he did. After that, I reconnected with them both, and just in the nick of time, because Gran did not have long left. I had not made those past few years easy on her, thus I spent those final months doing everything I could to make it up to her. And I remember, one of the last things she said to me, "You've become such a strong young man, and I am so very, very proud of you." It was a couple days after she said those words that Lucas and I sat with her again in that beautiful spot overlooking the town. We spoke to her for hours and hours. I told her all about my aspirations, all the things I wanted to do. And then we set her free, scattering her ashes across that beautiful spot. From there she would watch over us both, watch as we tirelessly strive to continue making her proud. Wow, dude, that was heart-wrenching, man. Wow, why did she have to die? Oh my god, Axel. There, Ax, it's okay, little dude. I hesitated, taking the time to ensure my response was appropriate before speaking up. She sounded amazing, Ty. I'm glad you managed to patch things up before the end. Thank you for sharing with us. It was my pleasure, Hunter, and I know that she would be so proud of both Lucas and me. You know, that kind of makes Lucas and you like brothers or something. On the contrary, I believe our friendship defies definition. For example, I was a while shy of 18 when Gran passed. I was not a legal adult just yet, and would have likely wound up an orphan myself, not unlike Lucas had been one all those years before. But you see, he wouldn't allow me to go through that, and, well, he was a little more than a year older than I was, so he... What? He's like your adoptive dad or something? Oh dear, please do not call him that. He was merely my legal guardian on paper until I was of age. Ha! See that? So I just, cringed. Ha! Daddy Lucas! Please stop saying that. The three of us broke into hysterical laughter at Ty's expense. Thankfully for us, our cheer would soon win him over, even going so far as to enjoy a few laughs himself. As we walked and laughed, we noticed the end of the long flight of stairs with the pathway curling around the side of the mountain. Ah, it would seem our timing is impeccable. Our campsite is only mere minutes away. I was incredibly relieved to hear that. The straps on my pack had been cutting into my ribs for the past 2 hours and my feet were killing me. With newfound motivation, the four of us picked up our pace, reaching the top of the stairs and following the path round until... Ooh, beautiful. Wow, this is such an amazing view! Dude, you're like the master of great views or something. Can't see Somerville from up here, though. Alright, y'all, I'm going to pause it right there. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and check out our Patreon if you can. It always helps. Before I go, I'm going to give a quick shout-out to our lovely bronze tier patrons. Thank y'all for all you do for the channel. We greatly appreciate your support. Thank you to our silver tier patron, Cade Silvermoon. Thank you for going a bit above and beyond. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you to our gold tier patron, Trezum Guy. You're awesome. We love you. Thank you for subbing to Ultimate Tier. Anyway, if y'all want to get your names in the credits, get access to all of our Not Safe for Work contents as little as $5 already. I love you all, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye!